Shalom. I like to say all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Rakah Kodesh. Double honors unto the apostles and elders of GMS, or the true leaders of Israel today. And salutations to my Akim, who do this work in truth and sincerity, who are risking their lives and their freedoms to do so, as well as the scattered Israelites who come looking like the heathen but are not, by way of their forefathers' seeds who are Israelite men. The true name of the Most High is Yahweh, and his son's name is Yahushai, and the Lord's holy chosen people are the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, as were the ones who suffer under the curses in the book of Deuteronomy. This is your brother Akali from the GMS Jamaica Kingston camp, and this video is a lamback to the video that the elder Apostle Tahar did. The woman was a Greek Israelite, and his channel is Elders in Transit 3. Alright, so, I was just watching the video. I've actually fully watched it already, and if I remember correctly, the apostle mentioned some history which he didn't directly go into, and that's where I will be lambacking from. All right, because you got to know the history to understand several parts within the scriptures. All right, and when you understand that, you get a better and more full understanding of what transpired, okay? Especially during that Greek and Roman captivity, all right? And this always comes up because, the doctrine of Christianity, that religion, they say that everyone can be saved. But everyone cannot be saved, and salvation is only for the Israelites. And then they'll bring up certain kinds of scriptures saying, oh, well, here it is there and here it is there. But they lack understanding, they lack true wisdom from Yahweh Shemishai. And so they push madness. And then in regards to those of us in the truth, this is why the foundation, the milk, is extremely important. All right, because you can always fall back on that foundation, and you will never be confounded in regards to anything. Okay, so that salvation is for the Israelites, which then that no matter what may appear confusing, which is not confusing, but it may appear confusing, then you'll know otherwise that no, this must mean not what you may think it appears to be at a face value kind of situation. Okay, so of course I'll just go straight to Luke chapter 1 and verse 68. Blessed be the Lord Yahweh of Israel, for he hath visited and redeemed his people. So the Lord Yahweh of Israel, all right, I don't see any other nation being listed there. For he hath visited and redeemed his people, personal pronoun, and hath raised up an horn of salvation, which is Yahushai, all right, his son, for us in the house of his servant David. All right, so Yahushai was raised up as that horn of salvation unto his people, Yahweh's people, and Yahushai's people, who are the Israelites. So that's point blank period. Okay, now the topic of discussion is this: the woman was a Greek Israelite. All right, so then you also have in the book of Acts, where it talks about there's neither Jew nor Greek. All right, but you see, this is why it's very important to go into the words, because the things that are translated from the Greek or from the Hebrew, all right, don't have the same meaning, so to speak, when it's translated to the English. All right, and that happens frequently. That's why it's very important to go into your words. So when you go into this word Greek, it says Hellenes. All right, so this word Hellenes. It will give you the definition there, but we're going to ignore this, right? Because Esau, Edom, they throw a lot of confusion out there. All right, so that's why the Spirit has to really be leading you, and then once again you have to fall back on the foundation. So we know that only Israelites can be saved. So this would say a Greek woman, a Gentile woman, not a Jewess, right? But that's a lie. All right, so the word here is Hellenes, and this is the feminine version of it, right? The male version of it is Helen. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now we're going to go to Google and we're going to type Hellenistic Jews. So let's go to this from the oxfordbibliographies.com, the Hellenistic Judaism. Okay, so it says, introduction, the term Hellenistic Judaism is a conventional one, long used, but a misnomer according to many contemporary scholars. And by the way, of course, you must know as well that the Jews that are being referred to in the time, well, in all times throughout history, okay, especially specifically this time, is referring to our people, us, the Israelites. All right, it's not talking about the people who claim that they are. Now, there are certain instances because, for example, those people are actually converts, but we're not talking about them in this right here. This is referring to our people who essentially became assimilated into the Greek way. All right, so while we were in Greek captivity, Roman captivity, we simply became such as them. Just like how right now we're in American captivity, which is ultimately Edomite captivity. All right, and that was also Edomite captivity, the Greek and Roman captivity. All right, and that's these so-called white people. Okay, so here we are in American captivity under the Edomites, and what happened? We took on to their ways. We took on to their customs. You can literally see those of us that are not awake, they're fully a part of the entire system, thinking that they're Americans, eating, walking, talking like they're Americans, following the traditions of Americans, celebrating the holidays of being an American, all of these things. Okay, there ain't no new thing under the sun. So this is just modern day, okay? But it's the same concept. It's the same thing that has happened. So it says, traditionally, Hellenistic Judaism was a designation for Judaism in the Greek-speaking world, including those Jews, our people, who spoke Greek and adopted to some extent a Greek way of life. It has been argued, however, that all Judaism after the conquest of Alexander was Hellenistic Judaism, right? So we're going to get the history on that, because the Elder Apostle Tahar mentioned in the video that it didn't start until after Alexander the Great, all right? Because Alexander the Great was amicable towards our people. So it happened after his death, all right, where we really became fully, essentially forced into being such like the Greeks, okay? And you know what's actually interesting is that they did that later on in history again in 1492, all right, when in Spain, the expulsion of the Jews, which were our people and are our people, you know what I'm saying? All right, they gave our people the choice: either you remain as Jews or you leave as Jews. No, sorry. Either you stay and convert from being Jews to becoming Christians and following our ways, or you leave as Jews. Okay? So they did it again. All right, keep that in mind. And 1492 was a heavy year as well in regards to Esau Edom coming into his Renaissance period, his rebirth. Okay? So yes, reading it again, traditionally Hellenistic Judaism was a designation for Judaism in the Greek-speaking world, including those Jews who spoke Greek and adopted to some extent a Greek way of life. It has been argued, however, that all Judaism after the conquest of Alexander was Hellenistic Judaism. Okay, now let's go over to another article. myjewishlearning.com. Ancient Israel, ancient medieval Jewish history, Hellenism and Judaism. Palestine goes Greek. The Hellenistic period begins formally with the arrival of Alexander the Great in the Near East in 334 BCE, but this date is not the beginning of Greek influence in the region. The Near East as a whole, and Palestine and its Jewish residents more particularly, first came under Aegean influence in the 14th century BCE. As trade connections increased, this influence became much more extensive. The following article is reprinted with permission from Text to Tradition, a history of Second Temple and Rabbinic Judaism, The cultural phenomenon that we call Hellenism had a lasting impact on Judaism and the Jewish people, our people, the Israelites. Hellenism was a synthesis of Greek Hellenic culture with the native cultures of the Near East. It was a dynamic phenomenon with the ever-evolving Hellenistic Greek-like culture continually becoming the raw material for new synthesis with other native cultures not yet under its sway. Okay, Greeks were not the first or main spreaders of Greek culture. Indeed, it was not the Greeks themselves, but the Macedonians, who were Edomites, whose civilization was derivative from that of the true Hellenes, who were mainly responsible for spreading Greek culture to the Near East. As Hellenism penetrated each new region, and amalgamation of the Hellenistic with the native took place, and this phenomenon resulted in the many different manifestations of Hellenistic culture observable in the Near East over many centuries. It was Alexander's conquest that made possible the union between East and West. But in fact, there was a deeper cultural reasons for the ease with which these two civilizations enter into a symbiotic relationship. Greek culture had by this time developed to its pinnacle. It had been liberated from the limitations of geography, and one could now be a Hellene by education and culture, not just birth. Okay? So this is what happened, man. Right? Now, keep all of that information in mind, and now we're going to head on over to the scriptures, which literally has history written within it. Okay, First Maccabees chapter 1 and verse 1, and it happened after that Alexander, son of Philip the Macedonians Edomites, who came out of the land of Shittim, had smitten Darius, king of the Persians and Medes, that he reigned in his stead the first over Greece, right? So Babylonian captivity, Medo-Persian captivity, Greek captivity, Roman captivity. And made many wars and won many strongholds and slew the kings of the earth, and went through to the ends of the earth, and took spoils of many nations, insomuch that the earth was quiet before him, whereupon he was exalted, and his heart was lifted up. And he gathered a mighty strong host, and ruled over countries and nations and kings, who became tributaries unto him. And after these things he fell sick, and perceived that he should die. Wherefore he called his servants, such as were honorable and had been brought up with him from his youth, and parted his kingdom among them, while he was yet alive. So Alexander reigned 12 years and then died. And his servants bare rule every one in his place. And after his death they all put crowns upon themselves. So did their sons after them many years, and evils were multiplied in the earth, right? Because the Edomites were ruling, and they're still ruling right now. Okay? Even though for a little period they didn't, but that's another topic for another day. And there came out of them a wicked root, Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes, son of Antiochus the king, who had been an hostage at Rome, and he reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks. In those days went there out of Israel wicked men, who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us. So to be like them, okay, to play nice with them and take on to their ways, because they're ruling and we're not in a power of rulership. That's the mindset of our people at that time. Some of them, the wicked ones. So it's like, let us be like unto the Greeks. Okay? Let us take on their cultures, the way that they speak and everything. Let's be like unto them. And then what happens after that? When you have that initial generation, so to speak, that does that, then the next generation that comes, and the next generation that comes, and the next generation that comes, they simply just forget who they are, and they think that they're like as Greek. Same thing happened today in these modern days, if you want to call it that, okay? For since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow, so this device pleased them well. So that's what our people did, man. Okay? So our people just simply became like unto them, and they became Hellenistic Jews. Once again, Jews who spoke Greek and adopted to some extent a Greek way of life. And that's just where it is, man. All right, Greek-speaking Jews. Okay, so when the scriptures is talking about this word Greek right here, and you see Hellenes for female or Hellen for men, it's talking about the Hellenistic Jews, the Jews who took on to the culture of the Greeks, the heathen, the Edomites. All right, so with that, I'd like to say all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Ba'ashim Yishai, Ba'ashim Kodesh, Wa'abad, Babal, Shalom.